Good morning, everybody. It is 7 o'clock in the UK. Welcome wherever you are watching us right around the world this morning. Something to smile about for England fans this morning as we look forward to the knockout stages of Euro 2020. But questions and concerns from top health officials after the government raised crowd capacity at Wembley to more than 60,000 for the semis and the final. The media minister, John Whittingdale, will be with us very shortly indeed. Also this morning, we will be hearing from two legends of English football, David Seaman and John Barnes, to find out if they think it's coming home. Also to come for you, our holidays once again on the horizon as ministers prepare to reveal their latest thoughts on travel. Protests are planned in cities across the UK today. We'll speak to the head of British travel agents and the leader of the Pilots Union about what they want from the government. It's Wednesday, the 23rd of June. Ecstasy and agony. Concerns this morning over an increase in crowd capacity at Wembley as Scotland crash out and England head to the Euro 2020 knockouts.
The good thing from our point of view, I think we're still improving.
Delta Plus, a new strain of the Indian variant, is discovered in a handful of cases. What's going on? We're live in India and we'll ask the World Health Organization too. Inside Britney's bedroom, we travel to the superstar's hometown as she prepares to challenge her father's control over her in court. And pause for his predictions. Meet Achilles, the oracle cat, who's been casting his bets on the Euro winners.
And there's a northwest-southeast divide in the weather today. Plenty of sunshine for southern parts, a little bit grey and rainy towards those northwestern areas. To find out what's going to happen in the next few days, join me for the weather details later.
Good morning. England is marching on in the Euros, so fans have something to smile about. But there's concerns this morning over plans to increase crowd capacity at Wembley to more than 60,000 for the semis and the final. The World Health Organization believes it's a risky game, increasing crowd numbers in countries where COVID cases are rising, like here. England heading to the knockout stages. They beat the Czech Republic last night. But there were contrasting fortunes north of the border where Scotland crashed out at Hampden. Enda Brady reports.
For England, the excitement of knockout football now beckons. For Scotland, the dream is over, crushed by Croatia. At Wembley, England had to win against the Czech Republic to top the group. Raheem Sterling's first-half goal proving to be the difference between the two teams. Callum McGregor's goal drew Scotland level at Hampden Park. But Croatia came back at them time and again. For Steve Clarke, this tournament has been bittersweet.
Well, we looked as though we might get something out of the game. We had some moments earlier where we managed to get some football away, managed to play through them. But no, I think overall Croatia were the better team on the night, and sometimes you just have to accept that.
For Gareth Southgate, it's job done and into the last 16.
Whoever we play, really, really tough opposition. But we've sort of known that for 18 months. We've known the route through. And the good thing from our point of view, I think we're still improving.
Bukayo Saka is a local West London lad. He only came into the team when two players were forced to isolate due to COVID.
It's amazing. I've played here before and got a man of the match performance before, but that was about the fans and about my family. So tonight to have my family and of course the England fans in the stadium, it was really special, and it's a night I'll never forget.
It's been confirmed that 60,000 fans will be here for the semi-finals and final at Wembley. UEFA getting their wish.
We're going through and we're going to win this cup.
All the other performances, the Dutch, the Italians, so much more creativity. We're not in the game really.
Yeah, I think we need to grow a lot more in confidence. I think no one's denying the capabilities there and the potential's there, but we need more. I think players need to just not care so much.
So England will be back here on Tuesday, where they will face one of France, the reigning world champions, Portugal, the current European champions, or Germany. It is quite a choice, but England have yet to concede a goal and will be confident of defeating anyone on home soil. Enda Brady, Sky News at Wembley.
Not everybody could, of course, get into the stadium last night. Plenty of fans in Trafalgar Square. Becky Cottrell is there. It was quite the event there last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, Trafalgar Square is where NHS and frontline workers from London came out to watch the match yesterday. Obviously, fans want to get into the stadium. England will be back at Wembley on Tuesday. They will be facing one of the teams from the group of death, those international football titans. So the pressure really is on for England now. An announcement from the British government that for the semi-finals and the final, over 60,000 fans will be able to get into Wembley. They will have to have proof that they've been vaccinated twice or they've had a negative COVID test, but this has prompted talk at home of special treatment for football.
OK, thanks. So let's put that, shall we, to the Media Minister, John Whittingdale, who's joining us now. Mr Whittingdale, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us this morning. What's the justification for raising the numbers for the semis and the final at Wembley?
Well, good morning, and thank you for inviting me. I think to some extent it is the benefit of our success with the vaccination programme. We have been proceeding cautiously. I was lucky enough to be at Wembley last night, where obviously there was a smaller number permitted. That was part of our events research programme, and we're now moving to the next stage, where for a number of events we will increase the capacity. But at every stage we're obviously listening to the scientific advice, and we won't do anything that will put public health at risk. And even though the capacity is going up, people will still be required to demonstrate that they've either had 2 vaccinations or that they've had a negative COVID test.
Yeah, but you're away from FIFA officials being allowed into the country quarantine-free, and they will be at Wembley. The World Health Organization is saying they're quite anxious about the whole idea.
Well, we have listened very carefully to our own scientific advisors. They are content that we can move to this next stage. Yes, there will be some people coming in, but they will be coming in to attend the game. They'll be under the strict restrictions as to what else they can do. And we have measured these things very carefully. And we won't do anything that will put our success at risk. But as I say, I think we are now at the stage where we can look forward to some relaxation. If this pilot works, then hopefully we can expand it in due course.
I want to talk about that, if I may, the Events Results Programme, as it's called, ERP, for the benefit of my viewers. So far, there's been a series of mass event trials, including the FA Cup final at Wembley, of course, the Brits, the Snooker World Championships. What are the findings of that report?
Well, the initial findings were very encouraging, and we're going to be publishing the full analysis before we take the next step, which hopefully we will be able to do in July. And we've said that we will make that report public. But it's a complicated exercise. It needs a lot of analysis, and obviously we want to be absolutely confident of the findings before we publish.
Why is it complicated? Either lots of people didn't get COVID as a result of going to these events, or they did.
Well, obviously that's the headline, but you do actually need to look and see, whether or not there was transmission, the age groups, how it appeared that it was spread. These are technical and complicated events which are to test the success we have had of containing the virus, and to make sure that as we move to relax further, we're not going to put that at risk. And I think that people would expect us to carry out a very thorough analysis. We've always made plain that we will publish, and we will publish before we announce the next steps.
Yeah, but this has been going on for ages, hasn't it, Mr Whittingdale? And you knew who was there because they were checked quite thoroughly before they went to these events. You knew what age groups they were. You knew whether subsequently they had COVID or not because they were tested. Why can't, given that it was successful, why can't things like theatres and other events open up now? Lord Lloyd Webber says apparently the report has recommended opening theatres.
Well, I can completely understand why Lord Lloyd Webber would like to see theatres reopened. We would all like to see theatres reopened, but we are proceeding cautiously. We have selected a small number of events as part of the events results programme, and we are now looking at those findings, and if they are positive, then I very much hope that we will be able to move to step 4. It has been delayed because obviously there was an increase in the numbers, particularly of the new Delta variant, but we are extremely hopeful that come July the 19th we will be able to move to step 4 and that everybody will be able to go back to the theatre.
I knew you were going to say the Delta variant, so I looked up the figures. 1 in 125 reported deaths the week ending the 11th of June, the lowest in 8 months. And certainly that does take into account the Delta variant. So, again, I put it to you, the nightclub industry, the theatre industry, so the festival industry is on its knees. They need to see this report. You have it, and you won't show it to them.
We will show it to them. We've said we will publish the report. We've always been clear. We will publish the report. Before we move to step 4, we will demonstrate to people the evidence and the analysis of the results of the programme and the basis on which we reach a conclusion that it is, I very much hope, safe to move to step 4. And we have been through a horrendous year or more now. The last thing we want to do is throw away the success we've had. It's only another couple of weeks. The Chancellor has provided huge support.
And, we've got it. 19th of July, you're going to publish the report before then, yeah?
Yes, we've said we will publish it before we reach a decision on step 4.
OK, fine. Talk to me about holiday destinations. Where are we as far as that is concerned? Looking at the figures, our figures in the UK are much worse than most of mainland Europe and Malta. Are we expecting several European countries to go onto the green list later on in the week?
Well, we've said that we will be looking later in the week to make revisions to the green list, and I hope that we can put more countries onto it. I quite understand why people want to go on their summer holidays. I would say to them that you can have a great holiday in Britain, and I think a very large number of people will decide this year that that's what they will do. But having said that, people like to get away to the sun, and there are a number of countries on the green list. I hope that it will be possible to increase that number, but that's something which we will be looking at, as I say, later in the week.
OK, I'm just looking at the figures as we're chatting, and Malta has got 1 in 100,000, Poland 3 in 100,000, Germany 8 in 100,000, Italy 12 in 100,000, France 24 in 100,000. Our latest figures were 93.7 in 100,000 here in the UK. What on earth is the justification for not having European countries on the green list?
Well, that is just one of the measures that you have to look at. There are, of course, others. We are way ahead of any other country in Europe in terms of the proportion of our population that are vaccinated, and that offers a degree of protection. And as we've seen, these figures can change quite quickly. We were sadly forced to put Portugal temporarily back onto the amber list because of the case rate there. So, these are expert decisions by the scientists. They make recommendations to government, and it takes account of a range of factors.
OK, well, I'm sure you understand and appreciate the frustration of the travel industry. Lots of them are demonstrating later on today. They're also planning to sue you. You can understand their frustration, can't you?
Of course I can understand their frustration, not just of people whose business is the holiday industry, but also millions of people who want to get away. And I very much hope that we will soon be at a position where that we will begin to return to normality. I think international travel is going to continue to be perhaps one of the more challenging areas in terms of resuming normal life, but we are all working towards that. Nobody wants to force people to stay in this country or wants people not to be able to go to the theatre again, and we are moving in the right direction.
Are you confident that if people want to go overseas, Costa del Sol or wherever this summer, that they will be able to?
I'm certainly hopeful. That is something which, we are keeping under constant review. As I say, I hope very much that it will be possible to put more countries onto the green list. I hope that it may even be possible in due course to relax some restrictions for people who, for instance, have had 2 vaccinations. But these are things which, are being kept under constant examination. And when we feel it is safe to make those changes, then we will do so.
Yeah, of course, we've been able to do that for UEFA and FIFA officials, haven't we, coming to the football? David Davis has called that morally inconsistent.
Well, we've always said that for some people who are important, players, for instance,
people
we've
who
had
want to go on
special
holiday are not
terms,
important. Is that what you're saying?
No, of course not. But we're talking a very limited number of people who are coming in, and they're also subject still to quite significant restrictions. They're not just able to come in and travel around Britain. They come in to attend a match and then go away again. We wouldn't have been able to host the tournament at Wembley if we hadn't allowed the players and people associated with the teams to come in to do so.
You are allowing chanting at matches, particularly at Wembley, but 7 people can't sing hymns together inside.
Well, we have said that professional choirs can now sing. Amateur choirs can sing outside. But as I say, we are proceeding cautiously. I very much understand that amateur choirs are very popular. A lot of people enjoy singing. I quite enjoy singing, and I hope that we'll get to the point where people can resume those kinds of activities. But I think most people watching this will feel that the government is right to proceed cautiously and do nothing to put at risk the huge success that we have had in terms of beating this virus.
Trust me, you wouldn't want to hear me singing, Mr. Whittingdale. A quick question about Channel 4 before I let you go. To what question is the answer privatise Channel 4?
Well, there has been a huge transformation in the way in which people watch TV, with a lot of new entrants, which is fantastic news for the viewer. You now have a choice between Sky and Netflix and Amazon and Apple, as well as the traditional public service broadcasters. Channel 4 has a very special place amongst the broadcasters. It has been hugely successful, but with that kind of competition coming on, in order to sustain it over the long term, we think it will need investment. It will need capital to invest in programming, and it is subject to really quite strict limitations whilst it is in public ownership. So we have said that it's the right time to think about a future model for the ownership of Channel 4, which will make sure that it continues to go on providing that very distinctive content and serving the public service remit which it has way into the future.
Why would you want to get rid of it when it's had its best financial year last year ever?
Well, we don't want to get rid of it. We want to sustain it. This is about making sure that it has a long-term future in a very different world to the one which most people are familiar with. We are looking at the ownership possibilities. One of the requirements, I think, over the coming years is that Channel 4 needs to have access to the kind of capital investment. It is, in order to retain viewers, you do need investment in good content. Okay. And with some of the new entrants, Netflix and Amazon, they are spending huge amounts more than Channel 4 is able to do, and an alternative ownership model may make it possible for them to access the kind of money to continue to provide great programming.
OK. I'm being told that you have to go. Just wanted to ask you very quickly, how was the football last night? You were at the stadium, weren't you?
I was. There are some benefits of being a DCMS minister. Obviously, it was a great result. I was delighted that England won. I'm looking forward. I don't think I probably manage to get there again, but I shall certainly be watching the match next week, and hopefully we'll go all the way.
OK, fantastic. Thanks so much indeed, Minister. Thank you. Well, if you don't take it from the Minister, perhaps you'll take it from Paul the Octopus. Remember, he had an astonishing record predicting winners in the World Cup. Well, he's got a rival for Euro 2020, and that is Achilles, the Oracle cat from Russia. Having a very good run, Achilles. He's already got 2 out of 2 results correct, which he does by choosing and eating out of a particular food bowl. He's got a way to go. Paul's run back in 2010 saw him correctly guess 12 out of 14 predictions. suppose if he eats out of both bowls, it's a draw, I don't know. But what Achilles lacks in legs, he's making up for enthusiasm. He's keenly awaiting the next prediction and another 2 bowls of food. Love it. Still to come on the programme for you at 20 to 8, the legend that is John Barnes will join me to tell us how far he thinks England can go in Euro 2020. As news comes in from India of a new strain of the Delta variant, we'll speak to David Nabarro of the World Health Organization. And travel workers have declared today a day of protest with hundreds of thousands of jobs under threat. We'll speak to the Association of British Travel Agents and the leader of the Pilots Union just after 8 o'clock. Before all of that, though, there's a new variant of concern in India called Delta Plus. Although currently found in just a handful of cases, what are the scientists making of it? Let's find out what it's all about. Neville Lazarus joining us in Delhi this morning. Hello to you, Neville. Tell us about Delta Plus.
Morning, Kay. Well, the Delta Plus variant has been seen or discovered in 3 of the states in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh and Kerala, and it's just a handful of cases at the moment, 22 in all, but the government taking no chances. They've made a containment zone or on these where these clusters where the variant has been discovered, and they have said that this is more transmissible than just the Delta variant, and it is a big concern, and the Prime Minister, his scientific advisor, all warning the country of a 3rd wave, which they say that it is imminent in the next few weeks. We've seen the devastating effects of the 2nd wave in the months of April and May on India, where almost 10 million cases and over 150,000 deaths took place in the same period of the 2nd wave. And now with this coming, there is a big concern out here of the new Delta Plus variant.
OK, good to talk to you. Thanks very much. Thank you. Quick look at the latest COVID figures for you, showing a continuing rise in the number of cases in the UK. This is how it's looking. 11,625 new coronavirus cases reported in the latest data. That's the highest number since the 19th of February. 27 more deaths were reported. Total number of people who've died within 28 days of a positive test is now more than 128,000. Other news for you now, and more than 150 employees have been sacked or resigned from a hospital in Houston for refusing to get a COVID vaccine. It follows a ruling by a judge allowing workers to be sacked if they refuse a jab. The Houston Methodist Hospital was the first major US healthcare provider to make vaccines mandatory for workers. We're saying the travel industry calling on the government to safely reopen travel and provide more financial support to help the sector. Travel agents, pilots, aviation workers and cabin crew are among thousands of people taking part in a day of action to pressure the government into reopening international tourism. A new £50 banknote featuring the portrait of Alan Turing has entered circulation. The codebreaker, famous for his wartime work at Bletchley Park, was born on this day 109 years ago. Her life has gripped the world. Strings of smash hits, a very public breakdown and a very quick marriage, and a fight with her dad over who controls her life. It reaches its climax today. Britney Spears is preparing to tell a court why she should be back in charge of her own life. Our US correspondent Greg Milam went to her hometown. A warning, this report contains flash photography.
Down here we have the furniture that she had in her growing up room.
They're very proud of Britney Spears in her hometown of Kentwood in Louisiana. Her life, of course, has been quite a journey from here, and who controls that life now is the subject of intense speculation. Out of all the fame and adulation, her story's become a cautionary tale for young celebrities.
This is Free Britney 102.
And while this documentary raised questions about the 13 years she's spent subject to illegal conservatorship, she's been largely silent. For the podcasters who probe the dark side of her story, hearing her in court is a big moment.
My immediate hope for her is that she gets to say what she wants to say and that she's listened to. Ultimately, I do hope that she's able to be autonomous.
The terms for a conservatorship is that someone's unable to clothe, feed, or shelter themselves. And Britney Spears can, do all of those things. So it's just an extremely upsetting situation she's in, and I think that that's why so many people are interested in it.
Lawyers say she does have some control.
She had the opportunity to request a termination of the conservatorship, and so far we have not seen her ask for that. We know that she's unhappy with her dad being in the role of conservator, and she wants that person removed out. I think she should have what she wants.
A whole movement's been born out of Britney's legal affairs, and they say it now goes way beyond her.
Our first and main focus is to get Britney free from these restraints, but also to raise awareness about this threat that's out there as far as probate conservatorships that come in and take over a person's life and their money. It could happen to any of us. We've been told as fans it's none of our business to stay out of it, and that's why it's continued for so long.
I think Britney means a lot to a lot of people. That's certainly true for myself. I think that she has been judged so harshly by society. I believe that Britney will be free one day, one way or another.
The fans look to her social media posts for clues as to what she really thinks. Her father says the conservatorship protects her. She herself has requested this court hearing. In her own words, she will at last.
A voyage into space can take its toll on an astronaut's health. But you might be more surprised to hear the scale scientists have gone to try to improve the trip. Like this, dozens of baby squid have been sent into space so scientists can see how they react to the journey and potentially solve health problems faced by astronauts. The 128 Hawaiian bobtail squid was sent into orbit on a SpaceX mission to the International Space Centre earlier this month. Believe it or not, the squad of squid, will help scientists understand why long space flights affect an astronaut's immune system. Come a long way since the Russians put a dog in space, haven't we? Do you remember what his name was? Do you remember what that dog's name was? I'll tell you in a minute. After the weather, here's Jo. Good morning, Jo.
Good morning. Well, it's looking a little bit ropey out there, certainly for northern and western parts. Down towards the south, it's lovely clear skies, sunshine, and it shall be warm as well. Let's take a look at all the detail.
Look forward to brighter skies. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Hello, good morning to you. Yes, lovely and sunny through many southern parts of the country. Was chilly to start off with, though. Temperatures back to around 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. Milder up towards the north and west, and you can see why. There's more in the way of cloud and patchy light rain. Now, there's not a huge amount of this, but what there is starting to work its way southward. So really, what we start the day with is roughly what we end the day with, apart from these central areas here. And this is where we'll see a bit of change as cloud starts to increase over parts of Wales, later on parts of the southwest. And you can see still some pockets of rain and drizzle around. Although there's quite a lot of clouds, eastern parts of Scotland, northeastern parts of Scotland also seeing some sunshine now, and that sunshine is likely to remain through eastern parts. Temperatures around 22, 23 degrees Celsius. That's 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Into this evening, and again, that cloud just slips a little further south and continues overnight, but it never quite reaches East Anglia and the southeast.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, the name of the dog seems to have escaped most of the team this morning. It was, in fact, Laker. Yep, you're right. Went into space on Sputnik 2, November 1957. First living creature sent into space. Didn't come back. Still to come on the programme for you this morning, the England legend himself, John Barnes, will be with us.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent.
Enormous explosion that's just come down. We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people.
You either live and recover, or you die. Okay, so that's like a war.
That's the war.
We help you understand the world with us.
Over the past 24 hours, the soldiers have been attacked on a number of occasions.
It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change.
We take you to the heart of stories that shape our world.
They were convinced the United States would become hooked. Well, they were right.
We hear shotguns being fired.
It's not out of control, but they've withdrawn. It's so hot.
We are at a breaking point and we need to work now and fast.
Even though young people are vulnerable to the impact of climate change, young people can also become the change agents that we need to address the climate impact. In my campaign or in my advocacy work, I work largely with young people so that their voices can be heard, so they can also influence decision making from the local level to the national level. And thankfully, we are making progress in that regard.
Hello again. You're watching The Breakfast programme here on Sky. Media and Data Minister John Whittingdale has defended the decision to allow thousands of UEFA officials and VIP fans to travel to London for the finals of Euro 2020. It's planned to increase the number of fans at Wembley for the semi-finals and the final to more than 60,000, 3/4 of the stadium's capacity. Mr Whittingdale told us COVID restrictions would only be relaxed when it's safe to do so.
Yes, there will be some people coming in, but they will be coming in to attend the game. They'll be under the strict restrictions as to what else they can do. And we have measured these things very carefully. And we won't do anything that will put our success at risk. But as I say, I think we are now at the stage where we can look forward to some relaxation. If this pilot works, then hopefully we can expand it in due course.
Labour's Shadow Defence Secretary John Healey is with us now. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
So important people can come into this country to watch the football, but we can't allow people to travel to amber-list countries at the moment and not quarantine when they come back. Thoughts on that?
Wrong. Wrong, and too much of what we've seen from this government, really. One rule for important people, one rule for them and one rule for the rest. It was the way that Dominic Cummings thought it was OK for him to break COVID rules that were being imposed by his government on the rest. And we've seen this time and time from ministers that just don't play by the sort of rules we expect of our British government and our British ministers.
But how do you feel about relaxing the rules so that Brits can go to European countries? Looking at the latest numbers as far as COVID cases are concerned, ours are significantly higher than lots of European countries.
I think we're off the pace on this. Many other European countries are putting in place arrangements for people who've been double jabbed. They're putting in place arrangements for confirmation or vaccine passports. And we've still got a confusion within government over what to do. We've clearly got to relax the restrictions as soon as we can. We've got to have measures in place to make sure that we can manage this for the long term. So that must involve allowing us to travel. But it's also got to involve proper support for those that must isolate if they've been in contact with someone with COVID. And finally, getting our test and trace system sorted out so that we can see this led from the local level, where we know from the experience of the last few months that it's councils that can best do that.
And how does Labour feel about the trials that have been going ahead for mass events like the FA Cup final, the Crucible and the Snooker Championships, World Championships? There, we still haven't seen the results of that. The Minister said that we would, but one wonders when, because as I said to him, the nighttime industry is on its knees and it needs the results.
Yeah, a good thing the government did these trials. I live in in Rotherham. I'm from Rotherham. The Sheffield Crucible was the first event with a full crowd, and we want to see that. But if this is a trial, we need to see the results. That's what the government pledged. That's what we've been pressing in Parliament, because the public and really the experts need to know where they stand. And if we've got the evidence, let's look at it, and government and the rest of us can make proper judgments off the back of that.
And has Labour been pressing for that?
Indeed.
OK, and what's been the response?
Stonewall. A promise made, conduct the trial, publish the results, lead a debate, make the decisions required, and instead we've got delay, we've got stonewalling. And you've got to ask, well, what are the results? Have these trials been done properly? And how can we draw the conclusions we need? Because people want to get back to be able to do things, whether it's music festivals, events, nightclubs, and they certainly want to be able to move more freely around the country and go on holiday.
In the meantime, does Labour support the increase in crowd capacity at Wembley for the finals and the semi-finals of the Euros?
Hard to make a judgment of that without seeing the evidence and the technical detail. But if we can do it safely, let's do it. Let's have the biggest possible crowd, especially for the next game when we've either got to play Germany or possibly France.
Or Portugal. We don't want any of them, really, do we? But
probably less likely to be Portugal.
OK. Well, I'll take your word for that. We've got a feature that we're doing today on Achilles, the cat that makes all the predictions. Apparently, he's very, very good at it. So let's see what he predicts for us. But as far as the rules and regulations are concerned, I wonder if I could ask you in a bit more detail about that, because I did also press the Minister on the fact that there can be chanting at Wembley, but 7 people in an amateur chorister group can't gather inside to sing together.
Well, I mean, the longer this goes on and the longer we have really no clear-cut decisions and a proper map through this and for managing COVID in the long term from the government, the more confusion and contradictions we have. And, you know, for people who can't sing together, that really matters. And I think when government isn't giving the clear-cut rules, isn't giving the lead, isn't setting out the plan, people will make these decisions for themselves. And increasingly, the government is making itself irrelevant to us properly managing this COVID pandemic and the future infections.
Irrelevant, that's a strong word. Why do you say that?
Well, because I think all of us, in many ways, are, first of all, trying to understand what the rules really are now. Secondly, making judgments in our own lives about the risks we'll take for ourselves and the families and those that are our loved ones. And without the decisions we should expect from government, the delay in making the clear-cut decisions, the confusion often, and then the really unacceptable sort of one rule for the VIPs, the one rule for the rest of us if we want to travel abroad, as we saw from John Whittingdale this morning, it's leaving the country in a limbo without the leadership that we should expect and have a right to expect from our government ministers and our Prime Minister. 2
things they are set on is selling Channel 4 and not allowing the Scottish Parliament to have an indie ref too. Thoughts on that?
Well, for my money, just as the Scottish nationalists said, we had a referendum to settle that question of the UK union for a generation. And on Channel 4, this is a great part of our British broadcasting public service and creative drive right across the world. It's got a mandate to be innovative, it's got a mandate to be alternative, it's part of our proud world-beating British broadcasting system, and I don't want to see it put into foreign hands.
But if it's so fabulous, then somebody will want to snap it up and make money out of it. And why should the British people be at least part funding that when they're already funding the BBC, would be the response, I suppose, from the government?
Its value at the moment is its ownership is not a question that then directs the programming it makes, part of the mix of our rich British broadcasting. I don't see a case for changing that. I do fear that it goes into the ownership of some big multinational foreign group, then we could see an influence, as we've seen in other parts of the media, where ownership starts to distort the sort of editorial decisions, the creative programming, and we lose what's very special.
I must counter that and say that doesn't happen at Sky News, and we're owned by a foreign company.
Indeed. You may say that, and
I do, and you couldn't possibly comment.
Good on you for sticking to that position and sticking to your editorial independence.
Yeah, and we certainly do that. We're ring-fenced at Sky News, as you know, as far as funding is concerned for the next 10 years. Finally, the yacht, the royal yacht. What do we think? It's going ahead, apparently. The Ministry of Defence has decided that they will pay for it. Her Majesty doesn't want it. The government say it's a great idea because it showcases us on a world stage.
Well, the Defence Secretary is appearing before the Defence Committee in the Commons today. There's some big questions on this. It's not a royal yacht. It's not for the royal family. It's a vanity project for the Prime Minister. And when the threats facing the UK are growing, the Defence Department should be investing in defence, not building a boat for Boris Johnson.
OK. I've thought of something else I just wanted to ask you. I forgot, sorry. Batley and Spen, if you lose next Thursday, does your leader have to consider his position?
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'd prefer to wait to the election results rather than the opinion of pollsters. Certainly my experience of being in Batley and the campaigning and canvassing I've done there suggests it's all to play for, and that's what we're doing. OK. And if you lose? Well, let's just not get ahead of ourselves. Let's wait for the judgment and the result of the election. But you know, I think with Keir Starmer, you know, we've got somebody who is a man who could be a Prime Minister from day one. He's a man of integrity, compassion, competence, the very qualities that British people expect of their government and their ministers, and they certainly don't see in Boris Johnson. And I campaigned also in the by-election last week in Cheshire and Amersham, and the reason that many Tory voters moved against the party was that the reason that many Tory voters moved against the party is they don't have a Prime Minister, they don't have a government that they can respect. They certainly could with Keir Starmer and they could with Labour in government. OK, so next Friday morning, a week on Friday, you'll come and talk to us, will you, down the line or wherever, about the results in Batley and Spen? OK, if you want me on your programme, I'm always available. Hey, there you go. Can somebody make sure we get a cab for him? Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thanks a lot, we appreciate it. Just a reminder, if you want to catch up on any of our interviews here on the programme or watch this again, you can by going online, of course, skynews.com. In addition to that, if you would like to, you can watch the interviews on Twitter as well, either at Sky News or at Kay Burley. Tamara is here. Good morning. Thoughts?
Well, Labour blaming the government for the confusion about all the different guidance, which has seen thousands and thousands of football fans going to the stadium, and even more going to be there for the semi-finals and the finals. 60,000 fans going to be able to pile in there now. We hear that 75% capacity, and they say it's all going to be done in a very safe way, that this is part of the government's events research programme, which will tell us about the spread of COVID at big events, but of course galling for the entertainment industry, for festivals that are being cancelled because they say they couldn't get a place on this programme, and yet big sporting events could. So I think for the next 3 or 4 weeks, a lot could be lost in terms of the entertainment industry while they wait for more clarity from government.
I did press the media minister about when we were going to see the results of this programme, so because then theatres may be able to reopen or whatever.
He's only said before step 4, as in the end of all restrictions, which we now expect to be on the 19th of July. MPs were pointing out in Parliament yesterday that they've been doing this since April and May, and we haven't heard anything official, even though the Culture Secretary actually said in a newspaper interview a few weeks ago that out of 58,000 people who've attended all these events that they're researching, only 15 have had COVID. But apart from that line in a newspaper interview, we haven't seen any of the data yet. So MPs saying, why can't we have a look at it for ourselves?
OK, for now. Thanks a lot, Tamara. Thank you. Well, as we've been discussing, England heading to the knockouts for Euro 2020. We want to know, I know you're asking at home this morning, what does the former England player John Barnes think about it? Well, luckily enough, we've got him with us now. Hello to you, John.
Morning, Kay. How are you?
I am great, thank you. I love that painting behind you. Talk to me about the football. How do you think England is doing so far? We are through, but it's not been scintillating, has it?
Well, the main thing is that we're through and we haven't conceded a goal because, of course, in England, we love to overemphasize how fantastic we are when we play well. And then when we don't play so well, we say how terrible we are. We're a very good side. We had a good first game against Croatia, not so good second game against Scotland. And, of course, we beat Czech Republic last night. Good first half, average second half. But the thing is, we're through. We haven't conceded a goal. We're not scoring many goals, but let's see what happens in the knockout phases as to who we get.
Yeah, both goals scored by Sterling, of course. Is he your player so far of the tournament, as far as England's concerned?
He's not my player of the tournament. He's my player of England because England have only scored 2 goals. I mean, there are other teams. Italy have scored 7 or 8 goals. Germany looks strong. So I don't think any of the England players so far are the players of the tournament. But he's been obviously our shining light. But we're waiting for Harry Kane to catch fire because we're going to need him the further we go in the competition.
Yeah, because look who we might be facing next. Talk to us about that.
Well, that's the thing with the new format of 3 teams going through. It could be anyone of Germany, France, or Portugal, which would be any one of them would be difficult. But we're hoping for Hungary to spring a surprise, and if they can beat Germany, it could be Hungary, and that's what we want. So we've got a difficult one if it's one of those 3. But as Gareth Southgate says, if you want to win the tournament, you have to play everyone. And of course, while it could be better to play them in the final or later on, you know, we have to play whoever is put in front of us.
Who do we not want in the next game out of those 3?
I would want France. I think France are my favourites. As much as you wouldn't really want to play Germany necessarily or Portugal, but out of those 3, I think France on the team I wouldn't want to play.
OK. Gareth Southgate yesterday was talking about the absence of Ben Chilwell and Mason Mount. Of course, they had to quarantine after coming into contact with a player from Scotland who was COVID positive. He described it as a bizarre situation and full of contradictions. What are your thoughts?
Well, it was strange. Not so much, them isolating because before the game they shook his hand and gave him a bit of a hug, a little bit of a hug. But for the Scottish players not having to isolate was strange because, of course, they would have been in the dressing room with him. They would have celebrated after the great results against England. I'm sure they would have hugged. So not so much that they had to isolate as much as they shook his hand and gave him a bit of a cuddle. In my opinion, I'm not a scientist. I don't know how the virus spreads necessarily. That seemed a bit strange. But for them to have to isolate and the Scottish team not, that seemed a bit strange.
OK. And what about having 75% capacity or crowd at Wembley? Do you have a view on that?
Well, of course, the view I have is that fantastic from a playing point of view that you want a crowd there. As to the safety aspect of things, I'm not, once again, I don't know. As I said, I'm not a scientist, but I do know the issue whereby certain people are saying, how can we go to restaurants, but they can go to football, or how can we not go to the theatre, but you can go to football? You can't please everybody. But I would like to trust them enough for them to, as we've seen in one of the countries, I think it was Hungary, where it's a full stadium. There are countries whereby they're allowing certain amounts of people to go back. So as to whether it should be 3/4 full or 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000, I don't know. But it's good to see that people are getting back into football stadiums.
OK. And your prediction for the Cup? Are you saying France, or do you think England can do it?
Well, I'm saying France. But I'm hoping for England not to play them in the next round, and maybe we can have a France-England final. Let's see who England are playing. Then if I come back on and it's France, then you can ask me then.
I will. That's exactly what I'll do. That's somebody else we've booked for Wednesday. We're sorting out our guests already for next week. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
The UK government says it's planning to allow, as we said, 60,000 plus fans into Wembley for the semi-finals. But is it safe or sensible with numbers of COVID cases rising? I want to talk about that in more detail with David Nabarro, Special Envoy on COVID-19 for the World Health Organization and Chair of Global Health at Imperial College. Hello to you. It's lovely to see you. I'm sure you're a football fan. Morning. You're a football fan, but is it a good idea to have so many fans at Wembley?
Of course, there are multiple sides to this. If I'm talking to you just as a public health doctor, I'm going to have to say that there are real questions to be asked because there is rising incidence in the UK. And we really do know that when you mingle people together, you're more likely to get spread. But as a citizen, I'm also thinking that it's time for us all to start to work out how we're going to get on with our lives, even though this virus is in our midst. And we can't just stop doing everything because we're scared. Instead, I'll tell you what we have to do, Kay. We have to learn how to pick up signs that this virus is picking up in an area and then we have to know very clearly what's got to be done so that we don't end up with an explosive outbreak that kills a lot of people. And that's the thing that I ask everybody to do for themselves, for their local authorities and nationally, to concentrate on the steps we need to have in place to maintain defences against the virus, to stop it welling up more and more. And that's going to be the life to come, at least until there's enough vaccine and enough certainty to be sure that vaccination will protect us. Right now, we can't say that.
And what does that look like for you? Is it people being double jabbed? And then is it people getting these tests that they can from the government website and maybe testing twice a week? What do you suggest?
Well, there's one other part that I'm going to have to say. You see, the virus is continuing to change. It's mutating, and it forms new types of virus that have different capacities to infect. And also, they do seem to be able to start breaking past the defense that's there from the vaccines. And so, as well as using vaccine as part of our defense, we're going to have to continue by keeping a bit of a distance from each other. And I'm going to suggest that the physical distancing part of 1 metre plus and mask wearing will be necessary, particularly in places where there's a lot of virus. We can't just simply ignore that. So we've got to keep the precautions in place. We've got to have really good test, trace and isolate systems that can pick up people with disease and get everybody isolated if they need to be. And at the same time, we will have to continue with the vaccination program, and it will include boosters.
So are you saying that people who are working in offices should still wear masks and be more than 1 metre apart?
There will be a need for every single workplace to be asking, is it right that we stop wearing masks and stop maintaining distance? Because that's the way you prevent people from getting infected. And that's the key to stopping big spikes building up. I personally am okay about trying to find ways to get groups together again. I'm okay about trying to restart the economy because that's what has to happen. But I'm also saying the virus is still in our midst and the virus is mutating. So we have to go on being careful about it. And I am advocating continued physical distancing, continued mask wearing for the time being, including in countries where there's a lot of vaccination.
How are you feeling, Dr. David, about the Delta Plus variant that we're hearing about? It's only a handful of cases at this stage, but it is being picked up.
Yes, and that issue of variants is what we're watching all over the world. They are going to go on coming. We will go from Delta to Lambda and then on to the other Greek letters. That's inevitable. And some of these variants will be troublesome. They will be able to break through the vaccine-related protection in a few people, and that will cause problems. I'm basically saying variants are going to go on coming. That's part of life. We need to pick them up fast. We need to move quickly if we see them in a certain location. And we need to build the management of variants into what we call our COVID-ready strategy, which is going to be the pattern for the foreseeable future.
And how are you feeling, Dr. David, about people flying around the world?
You know, we really need to be careful about this. Only absolutely essential travel. Now, essential can be essential for emotional reasons as well as essential for work reasons. But essential really matters. It's not yet the time for unrestricted travel to start. There are too many risks, I believe, and I think that the possibility of initiating another major explosive outbreak because of an event in a particular location that's done for leisure, it's too serious. So I'm basically suggesting keep being aware of this virus and keep working hard to avoid it. and don't do shortcuts, because just because we want to be strong in the face of the virus doesn't mean that it curls up and goes away. No, it can come back with a vengeance. So keep recognizing it's there, keep behaving carefully, and don't do things that you don't need to do.
Dr. David, we are out of time, but of course I need to ask about a little person before I let you go. How's he doing?
Yeah. Well, Otto, the one that I haven't yet met, I was hoping to meet him this weekend, but it's really difficult to travel from France to the UK and back again at the moment. All sorts of rules, and they change. So I fear that I'm having to make do with Zooms. But thanks to your very careful attention, I would say all my grandchildren are doing really well, and they send you their best, and they say welcome back after your absence.
That's lovely, Dr. David. Thank you so much. And I'm glad they're all doing well. Hopefully you'll be able to see them soon. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
I hope do. Thank you. Thanks
Thank you. Stay tuned for more here on Sky.